Hey guys, so I have been getting comments and emails about business related things a lot lately, which is such a nice deviation from the specific person category. So nice to see people wanting to actually do things for themselves rather than other people. And so I wanted to talk about this, manifesting a business idea. How do I do that? It was one of the big questions. I think 2 or 3 people asked that. And it's the same process as anything else, manifesting anything else. But the problem, I think, when people don't know what to manifest is that they haven't done the initial step of figuring out themselves and what they want in relation to that. So I want to talk about that because it's important. And at this point, moving forward, I feel like I've had kind of an apologetic tone. Is that just my perception? I feel like I've had kind of an apologetic tone about suggesting that people actually get to know themselves and suggesting that might be, a very important part of this whole manifesting thing. Why? I don't know. I really don't like telling other people what to do. And I don't know for sure what the right thing is for anybody but me. A lot of the time I don't know what the right thing is for me. So the last thing I want to do is lead anybody astray by speaking authoritatively about anything anyone else should do. But I think I'm going to stop that a little bit in certain areas because I don't think it's helping. I think if you're going to do something like make a career move from whatever it is you're doing to having a business, or if that's right out the gate what you're thinking you want to do with your life, I think it's really important to spend some time thinking about yourself and being honest with yourself about you and what you want, what your strengths and weaknesses are right now. What of those strengths and weaknesses are reasonable to use or change quickly versus needing to kind of work around them? I have experience with this for sure. This is how I always did it. Is it the best way? I don't know, but it was the way I did it. I think that if you are thinking that you want to own a business, the first thing that you should do is think about whatever it is you're currently doing. If you're unemployed, or if you hate your job or something like that, or if you're already a person who is running a business, but you don't like the one you're in, you want something else, stop and think about what it is that you want and need from making this move. So if you're employed, if you hate your job, it can be very easy to say, I hate this job. I want to have my own business so that I don't have to deal with boss, coworkers, whatever. I think it can be easy to think that. When I think, what you really need to be thinking is being employed by somebody else something I definitely don't want? Like, for example, if you were provided with a job that paid well, that had a good boss and good coworkers, would you still feel like, I don't want to be employed? For me, I don't care how awesome everything was. I don't care how great the pay was. I don't care how great the boss was. I don't care how great the coworkers were. I would never want to be employed. I'd rather make $50,000 for myself than $500,000 working for someone else. That's just me. That's just me. And for other people, I don't think that's the case. Some people have a very difficult time getting through the periods of time where they don't know where the next dollar's coming from, which in my experience has definitely been a part of figuring out and growing a business. Some people, your temperament may or may not be right for it. So it really helps to understand yourself. What is it that I want and need? So I'm going to give you the example from the very first move I ever made from being employed to not being employed. And it was when I was, I think, 19 years old. So I had a job as a mall security person in a department store. It was so lame. The job basically consisted of dressing like business casual, showing up and sitting in this room watching cameras where nothing ever happened. I had to be there at like 8 a.m. and it paid like, I think, $8 or $9 an hour. I don't know. That was the late 90s and that was pretty good pay back then. Definitely for a college student. That was great money back then for a college student. So that was what the job was that I had, and I absolutely hated it. I was very undisciplined with governing myself. So I'd go to bed at 4 a.m. when I had to get up for work, at 8. I'd wake up, I'd feel like absolute shit. This happened, like I just could not change this. I was still way too undisciplined. It took me all the way until my early 30s to change that, even having the intention to do it. Some things about yourself just take seemingly forever to change. So that was a big issue that I had. I'm just constantly tired, miserable getting up. I was also very uncomfortable with myself physically, even though I didn't really have much of a reason to be. It was the Kate Moss era, and I was a normal-sized person. Getting dressed to go to work, I just always felt like I didn't look right. I had issues with my self-image badly back then that, I'm still to this day working some of that stuff out. And so at the time, it was just like, I hated it. I hated everything about it. I hated being tired. I hated feeling like I didn't look right. I hated the job. It was so boring. And I just thought, what I really want is a way to not have to do this. At first I was like, I need to figure out a way to work for myself. But then I thought, it's not necessarily that I don't want to be employed. It's just that I don't want to have to go to a job at a certain hour, dressed a certain way. That's really the big part of it that's a problem. And I don't want the work to be so freaking boring that, I don't want to be stuck somewhere staring at a camera for 8 hours. I want to work around myself here. So I want to be able to get work done on a schedule that I choose, and I want to be able to do it wearing whatever I want. So if I could find that, if I could be employed, then fine. As long as I don't have to do those two things. I would even be okay with going somewhere else outside the house. It doesn't have to be from home, I just defined this. I was like, what do I really need? Okay, if I found something that paid me the same amount I'm making now, where I could wear whatever I want, and as long as I got the job done every day, could do the job whenever I wanted to do it, that would satisfy all of my current dissatisfaction. And very quickly, once I had that whole thought process, something like that did pop up. And that was the last time I was employed at that mall job. That was the last time I was employed, all the way until I worked as a caregiver for 4 months in 2008. Those are the only 2 jobs I've had since I was 18. So it is entirely possible, if you define something and think about it the right way, for the opportunities to just fall into place. This was before I read The Science of Getting Rich, by the way. This was just sort of a natural, logical intention. It didn't, I wasn't thinking any woo was going to come in to help me. I don't remember what I thought when it just popped up. I probably thought, what great luck. I can't tell you how many times I've thought, what great luck, up to and including recently. Things happen magically and you don't even notice it. You're just like, wow, that was really good luck, So just more evidence that this stuff is happening without anyone being intentionally aware of manifesting. People do this all the time. It's pretty much what everybody is doing. It's just a matter of, what are you tuned to? What are you seeing? What are your expectations? And I don't know. For me, knowing yourself is the easiest way not to spend a lot of time in misery. Not to make the wrong choices and then end up somewhere you're not happy with. That's, I think, I don't know. I would encourage anyone to do that. Don't be afraid of what you're going to find. Don't be so resistant to the idea of understanding why you want what you want. It makes it a lot easier to get it. It makes it a lot easier to refine it into what it really needs to be, into a boiled down, very, very specific. Like, how specific is that? Doesn't matter if I'm employed or self-employed. Just have to not have to wear some outfit I don't like to work, and I don't want to have to get up. If I've gone to bed at 4 a.m., I don't want to have to get up before 11. So that's really, really specific. And think of how many things could come in to fulfill that. So if you haven't done that, do that. Think about what it is that you really want. If you really feel a drive to own a business, another thing I wanted to say is, I think people have fantasies about they like walk into a store that's a small business owned by somebody, and there's an owner there, and they're just like, it'd be really cool to be that guy. It'd be really cool to own this thing. I know for a fact people think of having a business as being easy, as being like not a lot of work. That is rarely the case. I don't know a single person who is a successful entrepreneur who it isn't a passion project for, because the amount of work that goes into these things, usually you wouldn't want to do. It would feel like hard work that sucked if you didn't have a passion for it, if you weren't into it or excited about it or something, you know? So also think about whether or not you have painted a fantasy onto the idea of being a business owner, because there are a lot of things you can do in between owning a business and, you know, being a slave to wages or whatever in a way that you hate, that could satisfy what you want to do. So that's just my initial warning. That's my initial advice. If you do know that you want to be a business owner, if you know that you want to work for yourself, you don't want to be under any circumstances employed by somebody else, and you should really understand that when you're a business owner and you're not employed by somebody else giving you a regular paycheck, you are still essentially employed by the people you're creating a product for. You know, you never quite get around having to perform. There's always, pretty much no matter what, there's always going to be somebody's feedback that is involved. So if that's a part of it, keep that in mind. But again, what I would do is figure out what it is. What are your strengths and weaknesses? And what is it that you want to do? Do you want to provide a service? Do you want to sell a product? Do you want to have a physical location that houses a bunch of stuff? Or do you want to try to is that not something you would want? You know, you kind of need to, I think through all of these things. And you really don't need to know anything beyond step 1 to get started. But specifically, if you're thinking you want to own a business, it would be good to have some idea what you think would be a direction you're going to head in, just so that you can have some idea what you're doing. For me, this evolved over time. I mean, it was the thing that I don't understand when I hear advice given to just go big right out the gate is that so much refining happens through the experience of living the manifestation, living life, living the results of your intention. That all helps you refine what you want more and more and more and more, you know? And what you want at 25 is probably not going to be what you want at 35 and 45. That stuff changes. Your perspective changes just from living. So trying to manifest the end state of an evolutionary process, I don't even know how one would do that. I don't know how you would have any clue what that end thing is going to be without having lived through the birth of it and the experience of it and all of that. So, what I did through the experience of refining that first thing, I got a little job from a family member making warm sales calls. That pretty quickly I was like, well, I don't fucking do this. That pretty quickly refined that I also did not want to interact with people. I didn't want that to be a part of it. And so I'm sure at the time, I don't remember this, but I was like a total internet addict, you know, from the time it was a thing. I was just always on my computer doing stuff. And I'm sure that I was on eBay looking around. I remember watching a movie in which the product that I currently sell was used. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I could create that. And I went on eBay and I was looking around to see if anybody was selling that, and they were. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to try doing this. It was in its nascent form. It didn't look much actually like the product that I sell today. And it just kind of came about that way. I was just I was already in that state of mind of I want to work for myself. What other ways could I make money? What could I do that doesn't involve somebody else dictating how much work I have and having to talk to people? So that refined it, right? I realized that I need to have a little more control over this. That led me naturally to find this thing, try this stuff out, see if somebody would buy it. They did. That just kind of, happened organically. Okay, well, could I make more money with this? How could I do this more efficiently? What's the best way to do this? That just kind of came up after that. And then later, so to manifesting a business idea from nothing. that obviously happened organically without any kind of conscious, I'm manifesting this. After reading The Science of Getting Rich, which was about 5 years after that, I think I was about 24. After that, I just said, okay, I get what this book is saying. And I was still dabbling in that same thing from when I was 19, that same product that I had found. I was still in that general industry, and it was just too cumbersome. I didn't have quite the right product yet. I was still having to do too much to it. There was still too much service involved. And after reading The Science of Getting Rich, I thought, okay, I'm going to find the perfect thing to sell. That's, all I have to do is know what I want. I want a product to sell, like on eBay or somewhere. Just a product I can sell, that I can either manufacture or find or whatever. I'm not going to have to look hard for it. I'm just going to find it. That's it right there. That's it in a nutshell. I know what I want, and I'm intending to have it. I'm ready to go. I mean, that feeling, like, are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? If this thing shows up today, are you ready to go? If you find it, if you see it today, are you going to be at home researching it feverishly tonight because you're so ready for it? That's another big thing, I think, to ask yourself. Like, is this still in just kind of like the dream phase, or are you ready to go? If you're not, you can ask yourself why. If you're not, you can hang out. RIP, Dad. Best advice my dad ever gave me. You don't have to make any decisions today. Perpetually. There's rarely ever a pressure to figure something out that you don't already know. You can let life unfold for a few more days or weeks or months or whatever. That is what I would do. Figure out if you're ready for this to happen. Do you really intend for it to happen? Then it will. Just know that you're going to see it. And for me, it was a physical product. I knew that's what I was looking for. I was probably a little, I don't know if I knew I wanted to do that. I thought I knew I wanted to do that. And it turned out I did. I was just like, I want a thing to sell. I was always on eBay looking at what people were selling. And at the time, I don't know if you still can, but at the time you could see how many of them had been sold and how much they sold for and all of that. So you could really research what was selling. And I think there was even there probably still is a trending thing where it would tell you what things were selling a lot right now. So you would have a clue what direction to go in. And the thing that I saw on there, the first thing I saw on there was people were selling these huge lots of kids' clothes. They were selling basically 10 complete outfits for your 4-year-old. You could make all these outfits out of this little lot of clothes. You could mix and match, it was like a fashion article where they give you 10 pieces and you can make 30 outfits out of it by combining them differently. This was selling on there really well, these lots of children's clothing. And I was like, well, I bet I can find that. These 10 outfit, say, it probably wasn't 10 outfit, it was maybe 20 pieces of clothing that you could make 10 different outfits from. Those were selling for $300. And I could see why. It was so convenient if you had a little kid and who didn't like shopping and you didn't like shopping and you were looking to cheap out. You spend $300, you've got clothes for your kid for the next year. And so those were selling really well. And I was like, I bet I could do that. I know I could put the clothes together because that was something I could do. See, I was a woman who wasn't completely fashion ass backwards. So I was like, I can put together clothes for kids. That was a skill that I had. So I was drawn to it. What would that be for you? I have no idea. You have to get to know yourself. What can you do? You have to look around and say, could I do that? Do you have to? I don't know. If you're me, you have to do that. That's how I do it. And so that was where I started. That was the direction it headed. And I'm like, I can do that. It looks like it's making enough money that it would be worth it. I could try it for not very much money because to actually buy those clothes would obviously be a lot cheaper. If you go thrifting or find sales or whatever, that's the idea. That was going to be what I was going to do. So I went out looking for that. I went out looking for, you could, at garage sales, you could find kids' clothes that nobody had ever worn that still had tags on for super cheap. That was what I started doing. Started going to thrift stores looking for stuff like that. And that was how I stumbled on the book flipping business that I did on Amazon for 5 years before I dropped it. thanks to refining more and more what I didn't like. What I didn't like about that business was eventually it grew as much as it could, and it kind of hit a wall. It was, it became too difficult for me to find enough stuff, and it was a pain in the ass. I had to drive all over the place. So, it became refined. I was like, I need to be able to I need to manufacture something, basically was where I landed. I don't want to have to find stuff. So see, that took 5 years. And those 5 years were really fun. Like going all over the place, finding all the books, selling up. It was really fun. It was like treasure hunt. I loved it. It was like, going around and finding books. You'd find a book that just didn't look like it was worth anything, that was worth $400 and would sell the next day. I mean, it was just so much fun. But after 5 years, I'd had my fun. And I was ready for a stable business. I was experienced enough that I felt ready to do that. I had a little more money, sort of. I mean, I was constantly going broke still, but I was used to handling larger amounts of money. I felt a little different in that way. And I was just ready for the next thing that came. So this whole process is just defining, refining, intending, and getting out of your own way by thinking it's not going to happen. And learning when something that you've put in there is causing you this feeling of anxiety or resistance because you're simply not ready for it, or, that's really it. Like, what can you have a very clear intention about? That's what it really comes down to. I've been making Esther Hicks videos and cleaning up the transcripts from YouTube, and reading them has been a completely different, you can subscribe to that channel below if you like. It's been a totally different experience reading this stuff. She just confirms my lived experience over and over and over again. It's so crazy. Like, there was just a video yesterday where she basically described that whole process that I just talked about, the thing that I lived through. What is it that you don't want? The contrast, she calls it. When you're observing what you don't want, what that's doing is defining what you do want. So think about that. Actually make that in the forefront. What do I want from this? Not just I want a business idea. What do I want? Do I want freedom? Is that a big part of this? You really got to figure it out, or else you're not going to know what you want. You're not going to know what to intend for. So I think that's the best that I can do, because manifesting the business idea, that's the easy part. When you know what you want and you simply just say, I am ready to see it, I'm going to see it. And I mean, say it to yourself 1,000 times if you need to. I'm not going to have to look hard for this. I'm not going to have to try to figure this out. I'm just going to see it. That's when you get up on that high-flying disc where you just get the ideas, where your eyeballs, instead of looking this way, go, whoop, and there it is. I'm telling you, this is how it works. This is how Esther says it works. So now I'm even more emboldened, because this has been my whole experience without having been in this community until 5 years ago. And with seeing how it grows and the exhilarating process of doing it, it's like, it's not a one and done. I mean, I wouldn't trade the years I've been building my business and seeing success after success and getting to this point where I am practically retired now, by the way. I'm going to make the next video about this. Since starting this high-flying disc experience, it's so fucking dumb, but I love it. I love that phrase, high-flying disc. Since deciding that I was going to prioritize only and above everything else, keeping my mentality up in that space, that creative space, that highest space, that was going to be my priority. Since doing that, there's already been a major change that I'm so excited about in my life that is so obvious. You will probably unsubscribe from my channel and never listen to me again, because I'm going to look like such a dumbass. But it's not really a dumb thing. It's more of a ready thing. I'm going to talk about that in the next video, so I will make that now. And I hope that this video helped somebody. I mean, how to manifest something is the easiest answer that there in the world, The answer to that is the easiest answer in the world. It's you know what you want, you intend for it, and you expect it to be there, to the point that you don't worry that it's not going to be there, that you don't drop down into the I have to figure this out in that tense way. I have to figure this out in a high way is fun. That feels good. And this is why paying attention to how you feel, which is what Esther Hicks says over and over again and is true, is so important. because how you feel is telling you where are you on this scale of creation, essentially. Are you, and she talks about the receptive mode. That's exactly what it is. Are you in that frequency where you're going to actually see the thing? Are you in that frequency where you're going to get that idea and it's not just going to float in and out? You're going to see it and go, ooh, I need to act on that. It's really important. Anyway, have a great day.